Hello, in this video, I would like to talk about some content that will be in exam, okay? So in our first exam, so this will be kind of like a review section of our first exam. Then our first exam, exam 1, will be published on April 22nd, okay, Wednesday. So at Wednesday noon, 12:30, okay, p.m., I will publish this exam 1 on Moodle. And then this exam 1, once you click it, it will open for 150 minutes. Okay, so exam 1 will open for 150 minutes. And this is totally an open book, open notes, and you probably need to have calculators with you, okay? So I will publish this one on Moodle. You need to do this exam 1 on Moodle, and this exam 1, the total points will be 200 points, okay? Including 45 questions, okay? So I have 45 questions. So those 45 questions could be multiple choice, have some true and false, okay? And I also have some short answer questions. And I guess 150 minutes will be enough for those 45 questions. Then let's talk about some content in this exam could be covered. So this exam will cover from chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Okay, so those 3 chapters will be included in our exam 1. And let's first look at chapter 1. So for chapter 1, actually we're talking about 10 principles of economics, and we're mainly focusing on 5 foundations, right? So in these 5 foundations, the most important things I hope you can understand is the opportunity cost. We introduce the opportunity cost in chapter 1 and use this concept through these 3 chapters, right? So I hope you should know the opportunity cost. And thus the opportunity cost, I hope you will know is definition. So the definition of opportunity cost, it means the opportunity cost of an item is what you need to give up to obtain the item. Okay, so this is the definition. And I remember in our quizzes, there is a question, help you to compute the total cost of going to college. Okay, so there is example, probably from the quiz, okay? It talk about the cost of going or attending college. I mean, for attending college, probably you need to pay for tuitions, right? You need to pay for the textbooks, fees, and then the others, right? So those are what we call visible cost. Those are the visible cost. And in my including tuitions, it might also including the books fee, or it might also including the apartment fee that we call the boarding fee, okay? The boarding fee, okay? So those could be our visible cost, okay? And I remember in our quizzes, it talked about that the tuitions could equal to $21,000. The books fee probably equal to $1,800, sorry. And then the boarding fee could equal to $11,000. Okay, so these parts belongs to our visible cost. Okay, visible cost, including those 3 parts. However, after we're learning the opportunity cost, we need to know that except for those visible fee, attending college have the opportunity cost. because you spend maybe 2 years in our college or you spend 4 years in OSU. Those 4 years or 2 years, you can actually find a job and then you can earn some salaries, right? So those are the opportunity costs we need to consider of attending college. And the opportunity cost could be the total wages you might earn for this 4-year studies or 2-year studies, right? And during the studies, you probably also need to pay all the rent, right? So we use the wages, subtract rent. That would be the net earnings. Okay, so this part belongs to net earnings. We can say the wages here could equal to, maybe, I just write down a number, okay, $16,000. And then the rent you need to pay probably equal to 7,200, okay? So using 16,000 minus 7,200, then you can get your net earning, okay? So this part you can get the net earning. And net earning will equal to 16,000 minus 7,200, okay? And this part actually is opportunity cost. Therefore, the total cost of attending college should be the visible cost plus the opportunity cost, okay? So here is the opportunity cost, and then the total cost here will equal to visible cost plus the opportunity cost, okay? So this is the examples in our quizzes, and I hope you can have some understanding about how to solve for this question. I believe in exams probably you will have the similar questions as this. And in chapter 1, we also talk about, we assume people are rational, right? And rational people will think at margin. Okay, so this is also an important concept in this chapter. So we talk about marginal thinking. So marginal thinking requires you to compare with marginal cost and marginal benefit. So marginal cost, if you finish some of the quizzes or like homework, marginal cost, most of the time it will have some keywords, such as the person need to pay extra money, maybe to fix the car or to improve the kitchen, okay? It will have some keywords in marginal cost, such as actual cost or additional cost. So those are the keywords when you find out the marginal cost. And in this chapter 1, we talk about the rational people will only make decisions if marginal benefit larger than marginal cost. Okay, so I think these are the two important things I hope you can understand about chapter 1. And we also talk about why we learn economics, right? Because the whole society's resources are limited. However, people has nearly unlimited wants. Therefore, we need to have economics to help us to allocate those limited resources to satisfy people's nearly unlimited wants. Okay, so I think those are the concepts in chapter 1. In chapter 2, we talk about how to think like an economist, okay? And in chapter 2, there is a very important concept, which is production possibility frontiers, right? So this is very important. Production possibility frontier. Most of the time we call it as PPF, right? So for this PPF, I hope you will know how to define PPF. So PPF actually is just a graph, right? And it has 3 assumptions, because this graph will show the combination of 2 goods that an economy can produce within a given resources and the given technologies, right? So we have 3 assumptions. We have 3 assumptions. And those 3 assumptions will tells you we have 2 goods, right? We only have fixed resources, right? So for the example we use in our textbook, probably we only have 50,000 labor hours available, right? So we have fixed resources, and we also have fixed technology. Okay, so those are the 3 assumptions in PPF. And we also talk about PPF is actually just a graph, right? I also show you a video that I'm recording by myself about how to use the given information to draw a PPF. The shape of the PPF, it could be straight line, right? It could be a straight line. It could be bowl-shaped. It could be bowl shape. Okay, so PPF could have 2 types. One could be a straight line, one could be bowl shape. If it is a straight line, it means the PPF will have constant slope. However, if it's a bowl-shaped, then it means the PPF now will have increasing pointing slope, okay? We will talk about this later, okay? Increasing point slope. Okay, so now let's look at how to use some information to draw PPF from our textbook, okay? So in our textbook, it used the example, okay? Assume there is one country, which is the US, okay? So this is the US. And US has 2 goods, right? Computers, weight, right? Producing 1 units of a computer needs 100 labor hour, okay? 100 labor hours per unit. And producing 1 ton of the weight needs 10 labor hours, okay? So per ton. We also have the given resources that US only have 50,000 labor hours available, okay? So based on those information, we actually can draw the PPF, right? So the PPF here, I can put computers on horizontal axis. Actually, you can put weight on horizontal axis, okay? It doesn't matter. And then if you put computers on horizontal axis, then you need to put weight on the vertical axis, okay? To draw a PPF, as far as we know, now the production of these 2 goods will have a constant rate. Therefore, we just need to figure out 2 points on this graph, and then we can get a PPF. So the first point I would like to get would be the maximum computers that US can produce. So the maximum quantity of the computers that US can produce will equal to 500 units. So how can we get this 500 units? This will just equal to all the labor hours just in computers production, okay? Similarly, we can get the maximum amount of the weight that US can produce, which will equal to 5,000. So this 5,000 is equal to all the labor hours just using weight production. And then link these two dots. You can have the PPF. So this is the PPF, right? We also talk about any points on the PPF, like point A, like point B, any points on the PPF, they are efficient and they are possible to produce, right? Because they use up all the labor hours. However, any points inside the PPF, like point C here, this point C, of course, is possible to produce. However, not all the labor hours can be used up. Therefore, it is not efficient. Okay? There are some points outside the PPF, like point D here. This is a good point. However, this point is impossible for the current conditions to produce. Okay? So those are some different predictions on PPF. Now, based on this PPF, we can compute the slope, right? So we can get a slope. The slope here will equal to rise over run. I think I already reviewed this part in the introduction, okay? Here, the rise will equal to 5,000. The run here equal to 500. But this is a downward sloping PPF. Therefore, we should have a negative sign here. Okay, so now we have the slope will equal to negative 10. Okay, and if the slope equal to negative 10, what's the economic implication of this negative 10? So this negative 10 can tell us several things. Okay, so the slope here will equal to negative 10, right? And we can interpret this negative 10 in three ways. Okay, so the first way, we can say the opportunity cost of one computer is 10 tons of weight. Okay, that will be our first interpretation. Because we put the computers on horizontal axis, therefore this slope represents for the opportunity cost of one computer. Okay, we can also interpret like this. If one more computer is produced, then 10 tons of weight needs to be given up. Okay, that will be our second interpretation. We can also interpret like the opportunity cost of 1 ton of weight is 1/10 computer. Okay, is 1/10 computer. Okay, so those are the three ways to interpret this negative 10. And regarding to the graph, then let's talk about another shape of the PPF, which is the bowl-shaped PPF. Okay, so for the bowl-shaped PPF. So for the bowl-shaped PPF, I can also draw you a graph. Still we have computer here, okay? And we have weight here. Now the PPF is no longer a straight line. The PPF now is a curve, okay? So that will be the PPF. So this PPF, I would like to show you 2 points on this PPF, okay? Then you might have some understanding about why this PPF is bowl-shaped. So I show you 2 points. This is the point A, okay? And another point will be point B here. Now let's look at point A. Do you know how to get the point slope at this point A? So according to what we have learned before, maybe in math, if we want to get the point slope of this 8, then we need to draw a tangent line, right? So please draw a tangent line across this point. Then that will be the tangent line for point A. And we can get a slope for point A, right? So we can get the slope of point A. And for point B, we can also draw another tangent line, right? So here, I just need to draw another tangent line across this point, okay? So we have slope of point B. Compare with these 2 tangent lines. Can you tell me which one is steeper? Which one is steeper? Definitely, the tangent line at this point B is steeper than the tangent line of point A, right? So we would like to say, if we just compare the absolute value, okay, then the point A slope is smaller than the point B slope if we just compare with the absolute value, okay? So I can write it down here. The slope of point A actually is smaller than the slope of point B. Okay, so here it tells us moving from A to B, okay? I would like to say moving from A to B, moving from A to B, what happens? We have more computers, right? Point A and point B, you can see at point B we have more computers. So we have more computers. More computers. We have more computers. And it also means that the slope increasing, right? It means the opportunity cost. I write it down here, okay? The opportunity cost of one more computer or extra computer is increasing. The opportunity cost of one more computer is increasing as we have more computers. So just as moving from A to B, we have more computers, and then the slope is become steeper, which means the opportunity cost of an extra computer is increasing. Therefore, this bowl-shaped PPF tells us the opportunity cost of a computer is not constant, is increasing if we have more computers, okay? So this is the end of the chapter 2's content. I hope you can understand. The most important thing is how to learn the PPF and how to link PPF with the opportunity cost and why the PPF will have different shapes, okay? And for chapter 3, we talk about trade, right? So for trade, you need to distinguish. There is 2 important advantages, right? The first one is absolute advantage. So absolute advantage, according to our textbook, according to a definition, it means fewer inputs, right? So fewer inputs. or we can also say probably will have more outputs. So for example, in our textbook, it mentioned 2 countries, right? US and Japan. And US just need 100 labor hours to produce 1 computer. However, Japan needs 125 labor hours to produce 1 computer, which means Americans would definitely have absolute advantage in computers production because it can use fewer labor hours, okay? And there is another advantage, which is comparative advantage, okay? So comparative advantage. And we put more weight on this comparative advantage because this comparative advantage means this one represents for lower opportunity cost. So here you can notice we're using opportunity cost through chapter 1 to chapter 3, okay? And we also know that at the end of chapter 3 tells us comparative advantage is the reason for international trade, right? And we also know that if the countries has comparative advantage in one good, then you can have some specializations, right? So the specializations, we also talk about import and export, okay? There is a trick I want to tell you. Most of the time we will talk about only 2 goods, 2 countries, right? And 1 country can have absolute advantage in both goods. That is possible. However, a country cannot have comparative advantage in 2 goods production, okay? So which means in the exam or during their homeworks, if you can figure out 1 country will have comparative advantage in 1 good, then another country should have comparative advantage in the different goods, okay? So this is the trick to help you to distinguish the comparative advantage and absolute advantage. And the countries, if he has comparative advantages in 1 good, then he should export that good and import the other goods, okay? So I think those are the content in the 3 chapters I hope you can understand. And good luck for the exam.